Oh, you know what? Sorry, I don't have my device here keeping time. I want to keep time also.
I might have to start like this slideshow. I think it's
Oh, it's the first screen's black.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Have you ever felt judged or didn't feel like you belonged? I know I felt this way in new and different situations. Put yourselves in the shoes of those with disabilities or special needs that feel this way every second of every day. Difference often scares people, and fear makes people avoid their discomfort. All my life, I've experienced firsthand that disabilities are nothing to fear. Instead, it's the precise opposite. When I was little, I played with kids at the Special Games, a day where kids with special needs can be themselves, focusing on their abilities rather than their disabilities. From that young age to this day, I understand that all people are equal. No one is better than or more capable than anyone else. We're just different, with diverse strengths and weaknesses. These past 2 years, I have been a counselor at RAD Camp, Rising Above Disabilities. RAD Camp offers awesome programs and camps for adults and children with developmental disabilities, and a life-changing volunteer experience for the local community. I have seen the transformation of myself over the years while working with the disabled community. The games in camp have shown me that having a disability is not a setback, it is something to embrace. Society tends to exclude individuals with disabilities because they are unlike society's standards due to a disability or special needs that they have no control over. Sarah Goring stated from the National Library of Medicine that one result of the common medical understanding of disability is that people with disabilities are often reporting feeling excluded, undervalued, pressured to fit a questionable norm, and are treated as if they were globally incapacitated. We all feel out of place or uncomfortable at times in our lives, but each one of us are placed in situations where we are uncomfortable because of the awareness we are different. People with disabilities are often ostracized and perceived to be an outcast. Today, I want to show you exactly how that is true by delving into the history of society's treatment of the disabled community as outcasts, the offensive label people use to exclude those with disabilities, and to spotlight that even the most progressive cultures discriminate against people with disabilities. First, let's understand how the disabled community became to be considered outsiders. Historically, society treated the disabled community as outcasts. While our ancient era is well known for contributions to philosophy, literature, and medicine, these were not the best of times for people with disabilities. The Minnesota Governor's Council on Developmental Disabilities states that in Rome, centuries ago, children with disabilities were treated as objects of disrespect. Children who were blind, deaf, or mentally unstable were publicly mistreated. Some children born with disabilities were harmed to increase their value as beggars. Other children born with disabilities were left in the woods to die, their feet bound together, for people to discourage anyone passing by from adopting them. Chamba Mooney from Disability Studies Quarterly found that among the Greeks, the sick were considered inferior. Plato recommended that children with deformed offspring to be put away in mysterious, unknown places. During the 16th century, however, Christians such as Luther and John Calvin indicated that the mentally unstable and the other persons with disabilities were possessed with evil spirits. In the 19th century, supporters of social Darwinism opposed state aid to the poor and otherwise handicapped. They reasoned that the preservation of the unfit would impede on their natural selection process. Keeping history in mind, let's discuss how this has evolved into how people distinguish them today. Even the most progressive cultures discriminate against people with disabilities. Before the Americans with Disabilities Act, the country was a very different place for those with disabilities. Even today, with the act in place, there are still issues with education, healthcare, and employment. Susan Brink from NPR states, First, that countries should guarantee the right to education at all levels for people with disabilities. That right is constitutionally guaranteed in only 28% of the 193 constitutions surveyed. Second, countries should guarantee people with disabilities the right to the highest possible standard of health without discrimination. Only 26% of 193 constitutions explicitly guarantee the right to health with people with disabilities. Third, countries should guarantee the right of persons with disabilities to work in an environment that is open, inclusive, and accessible. Only 18% of 193 constitutions guarantee this right. Anaya and Heather from CNN wrote that Jordan Gallagher, victim of disability discrimination, hasn't had a job in 3 years because he is blind. Yet he has his entrepreneurship and management degree and can read a computer just fine with a screen reader. As you can see from these points, it is evident that the disabled community is being ostracized in more ways than one. You may not realize this, but labels too can create people to feel different or excluded. People with disabilities have been labeled with offensive terms like retard. The word retard, or retarded, used to be a clinical term created by the healthcare community to describe a person's medical condition. It meant that a person's intellectual capabilities were impaired. The term was never meant to insinuate a person was not smart or incapable. The term was as gentle as referring to someone with blood sugar issues as diabetic. You can see how this label is hurtful and offensive to those with disabilities. They are put into a specific group when you use this word. This term ignores individuality, spreads hurt, equates intellectual disability with being dumb or stupid, offensive, and is derogatory. My friends who have special needs have expressed when this term is used, they feel excluded, lonely, less than, and not accepted for who they are. There is more to just a word. A label can leave a lasting effect on or with someone. Think before you speak. Finally, I want to say that there are many ways the disabled community can feel excluded or as an outsider. The topics I highlighted, like our history of special needs, how labels can make one another feel left out or alone, how culture is still discriminatory against them today, all lead to excluding this specific community. John Stevens, an American disability advocate, perfectly states, "Let us decide from this day forward to include, not exclude, to educate, not isolate, and to celebrate, not terminate." This statement represents how we should treat our disabled friends. The more you understand things, the less scary they are. Thank you.
All right, Rigo, what did you think? He's not here. Of course. Why not?
I thought you did great.
Yeah, no, I'll offer you the comments that I was going to make. I like the rhetorical question that you have at the beginning. There's a nice transition to the topic. You give a little bit of a justification. I think there's more information that justifies the subject later in the speech. I think you could put a little bit more in the introduction, but it was perfectly fine here. Your descriptions of the group that you work with, I thought that was also interesting. It also gives you a little bit of credibility. The problem is, and it's a minor problem, it takes you 2 minutes and 21 seconds to get to your purpose statement, so it's a long introduction. But it's a compelling one. I think that works pretty well. There's excellent citation of information in the presentation. You're very consistent about doing that. I like all of your explanations. It's clearly organized, and I thought that you had very smooth transitions as you were moving from one point to the next. I thought that worked really well. The visual materials, sometimes it rushes by. It doesn't always explain things, but it does help create interest in the subject, and I think that that's effective. It did seem like your visuals were nicely planned, and that you had the slides in the order in which you wanted them. You had blank slides when you needed them. You thought about that process, and they were integrated throughout the presentation, which is nice. Like I said, they could have probably added a little bit more. There were a couple of diagrams that you had that seemed to have a lot of information on them that never gets explained. And I'm not sure how important those things were in the long run. If you're never going to explain them anyway, why are we looking at them? So that'd be something that maybe you could cut down a little bit on. It's delivered pretty effectively, despite the fact that you are using a script, or notes at least, extensive notes, but you do deliver it pretty effectively, and it finishes right on time, so that's always nice too. All right, thank you. Sure. Let's do this first so everybody can watch us do that. So what are you trying to do? Put this into a slideshow?
Seven's a lot. Like 7 to 8 is where it's at. So you don't have to hit 8, but you should hit 7. Just tell us a little bit. Just tell us a little bit. Talk about your morning. Was that
Ideally.
good job. Sure. What's your budget?
Okay.
Just list it.
Oh, the one with like all the stuff underneath.
Yeah. We expected to leave alphabetical order of all the Italian food.
All right. There you go. Then I take it you're going to be next. Now I have to make sure I've got your material next, because I didn't, but I will dig it out. Hang on a second. Oh, shoot.